Have you ever thought about what's going on inside each individual's brain? Are they showing their true self or are they hiding something inside? How would you know if someone's alright or if they're going through a tough time? Or when would you know if someone requires help if they're not showing it on the outside? I had felt so irritated and annoyed for so long, wondering why I have to undergo this. Why couldn't I just be that person who helps but does not require help? I had several contemplations that continuously bothered me every day, every night, every month, and every year until I finally got tired. As I grew older, I've been questioning why can't I be like other kids who have complete families. I remembered all my good and bad decisions in life that became a factor in what I am feeling or thinking. I never took the time to think before taking action. I enjoyed exploring and trying new things that aren't productive or beneficial. Now I can recognize the differences between myself from the past and the present. My depression or the impression of despair, guilt, and loss of interest has greatly influenced my thoughts, behaviors, and verbal expressions. This regretful feeling has been carried on for years and has impacted my physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development. What is depression? Depression is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, how you behave, and the way you think. Based on the Healthy News 2022, nearly 10% of Americans suffer from depression, and it is commonly discovered among teens and young adults. Depression is common in the US, and it has led to an epidemic level. Factors that cause depression commences because of various devastating happenings or events. For example, social media, family relationships, bullying, lack of motivation, low self-esteem, and more. A common indication of depression is sadness, loss of interest, trouble sleeping, appetite disturbance, and difficulty concentrating. It is a common reason why individuals attempt to commit suicide or hurt themselves. Depression results from a complex interactions of social, psychological, and biological factors. How did everything start? Going back to my childhood, it was ordinary, adventurous, and relaxing like how kids will normally feel. I grew up being disciplined and spoiled. I didn't have anything to worry about and it made me comfortable. My parents were having problems financially in the Philippines and both of them decided to apply down here. They weren't officially engaged, but because of their love and care for one another, I came into this world. As I grew older, I found out that they had other partners I wasn't aware of. My mom was divorced from my brother's dad, and my dad has a wife in the Philippines. My dad would always try to send money to the Philippines, and if my mom refuses to help, he would get mad. From there on, that's when things started to go downhill. If my mom didn't prepare food, he becomes unsympathetic and mumbles saying that it is not just his responsibility. Because of the differences and misunderstandings, they don't get along with each other anymore. My mom walked out when I was in 8th grade and I felt really unhappy about it. At first I thought I wouldn't get over it, but at least now I learned to endure it and understand her. My dad would constantly throw things at her, shout at her, and push her to do things around the house even when she was overworked. Some parents had struggled with problems similar to my parents' issues. My parents would non-stop argue and I was in the spotlight of that problem. He couldn't recognize, he couldn't acknowledge it, he couldn't open up and settle the issue. He couldn't just accept his mistake and apologize for overreacting and treating her that way. I wished and hoped to build bridges and have them forgive each other, but it was only a matter of time. They're just going to pretend like everything is fine when in fact it's not. As I witnessed so many unpleasant things in our household, I felt depressed because I was just watching them and weeping about them. There was nothing that I could have done to forbid them from fighting. My parents' arguments was a dreadful experience that I know no kid would want to experience. How did depression influence my physical health? When my parents had their arguments, there were times I just stayed in the room and would refuse to eat. I let myself starve, thirst, or oversleep just because I don't want to be involved with whatever problem they're going through. It was embarrassing for me to add on to what they were going through, but I wanted them to know that I needed their attention. I was ashamed of my body because I looked like a twig, and it made me look like I wasn't getting enough food in my body. I didn't want to be judged, or I didn't want to hear them gossip about my appearance, but I couldn't do anything about it. My physical development became poor due to an unexpected experience of depression, which encompassed an extensive flow of negative voices and thoughts. It made me more prone to getting sick with high fever, body aches, pain, flu, and headaches. It was difficult for me to recover or heal because I didn't eat as much, and sometimes I don't get enough sleep thinking about the problem. Instead of me going to bed early or making sure I eat, I remain stubborn and hard-headed and continue to mind my own business so that I can distract myself from my parents. I felt completely alone in the world and pretended that everything is going well for me when it isn't. I kept my depression concealed so that no one will have to worry about me. Even though my parents were shy and seemed fun to be with, I just focused on being on my best behavior. I didn't want to be another reason why they would end up arguing again. Did you know that our actions can result in long or short-term consequences? Sleep troubles, fatigue, and worries about health are reliable pointers of depression. Our actions of not eating or exaggerating can increase levels of stress hormones such as cortisol or adrenaline. It has also been associated with heart disease and increased risk for substance abuse. It can make existing illnesses worse. Depression can affect the immune system, making it harder for your body to fight infection. Many of the physical changes caused by depression, such as insomnia or lack of deep sleep, are thought to weaken your immune system. All these changes can lead to a vicious cycle that's tough to break without treatment for both depression and any other diseases. How did depression influence my cognitive health? I lacked in my education environment because I lost the confidence to keep moving forward, the inspiration to study well, and poor concentration in class. Even though I tried to perform my best, it was difficult for me to learn, comprehend, and memorize without having to think about what happened to my parents. Instead of making my parents proud and motivated by having a lot of accomplishments, I disappointed them because of my behavior. When I was young, I had a lot of goals and dreams that I wanted to attain as I grew older. However, depression changed my perspective of ambitions and life as a whole. I was never goal-oriented anymore and made a disparity in the way I plan, solve problems, and my decision-making. All my good memories and remembrances were blocked by bad and sad events. I tend to wander more in thought, make careless misconceptions, lose track of my surroundings, and feel overwhelmed. I wasn't the best version of myself, and it got in the way of my development. During high school, I was introduced to vaping, and from there, aside from the satisfaction, I got to enjoy and relax for a short amount of time. It discharged some of the pressure of life. However, it became addictive and it was somewhat hard to stop. I was unable to see my way through issues, so I found another way to somewhat lessen negativity. It was good for me while it lasted until I started to realize that it isn't right. I had trouble making decisions, and it was mostly based on my curiosity and preferences. The potential cognitive changes from depression include executive dysfunction, impaired learning and memory, reduced attention and concentration, and lower processing speed. How did depression influence my psychosocial health? After undergoing so many events in my life, I allowed myself to be placed in an endless stage of sadness. I was insecure and uncomfortable to share about my feelings. Moreover, I would rarely go outside and socialize because if I do, I would hear people, particularly Filipinos, talking about my parents. It discourages me to hear rumors that I know are true, and I wish it was just all a dream. As time went by, I was led by bad influences. I had friends who taught me how to drink, vape, and do foolish things. At a young age, I started doing inadequate stuff that I know I shouldn't be doing. Being with friends was my getaway from home, and there are times I return home like around midnight. Sometimes I would want to sleep over at other people's houses because I feel free to do whatever I wanted to do without having one of my parents scold me. I was living life like there was no tomorrow because during that time, tomorrow was unsure for me. As my depression developed, I started to hear second voices talking in my brain whenever I overthink. There are times I would hit myself or knock my head on the wall because it was too much for me. I also had thoughts of doing suicide because I felt worthless in this world, and I thought it would be better since I would be living with a shattered family. However, I didn't continue because I knew it wasn't worth it. What made me change to become better? After years of going through depression, I thank God for everything that has transpired for me, and that I'm still here in this world. I had suicidal thoughts that came across my head every time I was offended or disheartened, but despite all that, I made modifications, and it diminished my depression. The workout and exercises stimulated my mood and helped me sustain a healthy weight. The day-to-day responsibilities I had at home, school, and church helped me maintain a lifestyle away from depression, and it was my form of distraction. Moreover, ever since 2021, I started being involved in more church-related activities that helped me stay drawn away from depression and strengthen my relationship with God. I was given the responsibility to teach dances to the youth, and I was very passionate about it. I set things right, and instead of staying in my parents' darkness, I concentrated on helping my parents around the house. I needed to take care of myself, get help for my progress, and learn to love myself as a whole. It was a good suggestion for me to appreciate other pastimes and live a productive life. Because of depression, I was able to comprehend my necessities, which pushed me out of my comfort zone. I had to be patient, motivated, and remain steady, convincing myself to find out that light and exhorting to believe that it is God who has the power within my heart and brain to cheer up that light. I became more sympathetic towards cognitive problems because I've been through it, and I know how it feels when you feel like no one can understand you and they think you're just overreacting. It has made me more considerate and sensitive towards other people around me because depression is not noticeable externally like most physical diseases. We never know who is sorrowful, as people are good at concealing it behind their smiles. I learned what it meant to be more accountable to regret, and looking back, I learned what it meant to live in the moment. Now that time has passed and I can look back at the circumstances, I can see some humor in what I did. I still acknowledge that I was incredibly ridiculous in my decision making, but being able to laugh at it is significant in the growing process. In conclusion, whether it's something you've been anticipating or something that comes up completely out of the blue, big changes can have a huge impact on your life. Even good changes can trigger distress or make it worse. Some may have regretted things and some might still be stuck in the darkness of life. No one can recognize what a person is feeling or thinking, especially if they are hesitant to share or express their emotions. I have attained overthinking, stressing, and anger issue problems which hinder my academic performances, and I grew older with toxic beliefs. Until now, I'm still trying to make choices and favorable coping methods to free myself from the chains of depression. I believe that there are reasons why certain things can happen, and it's part of life. We can't move forward without experiencing challenges because God wants us to learn to prepare ourselves for what's lying ahead of us.